What's up, guys? And welcome to another episode of Action Figure Prop Shop. This episode, I'm going to show you how I made a telephone booth for my 6-inch scale figures. And throughout the video, I'll show you what materials and techniques I used to assemble this beast. So this is the balsa wood that I'm going to be using, and this is the same balsa wood that I use from my other projects that require more of a stable structure, such as the arcade cabinet, the dumpster in the intro, and some other various projects I've done. And you should be able to find it just about any craft store. And I always use the 40 or 50% off store coupon. That way I could save a couple bucks. You know? So I chopped up the sheet of balsa wood into 6 different sections. I have the 4 rectangles for the 3 walls and the door, and then the square pieces for the top and the bottom of the phone booth. So the 3 rectangle pieces that are going to be the walls, I used my ruler and I used a pencil, and I just mapped out the design, which parts I'm going to paint and which parts I'm going to cut out. So I used the same technique with the door, and with the door I'm going to have to do the most cutting. I'm going to have to separate it into 3 pieces. I got the top marquee piece that's going to say phone, and then the 2 doors are going to be swinging open. And then I'll have to cut out the rectangles in the middle so that way I can put the glass windows, or plastic windows, but we'll get to that. And in case you were curious, I use a box cutter just like this to cut all the balsa wood. Well, not just like this. I use this box cutter to cut all the balsa wood. And it also doubles as a bottle opener. You can see how worn out the bottom is? Yeah. So back to the 3 walls, I cut out the rectangles in the middle for the windows, and I went over the pattern again with the pencil to make it really deep so that way you can see where it separates from the different sections. And I chopped up the door into the 3 pieces and cut out the middles for the windows, and this probably was the hardest because the wood's so thin, it just made it really delicate, so I had to be really tedious not to crack it or break it. So with all the cutting finished, I sanded it really good, sanded off all the hard edges and all the excess, and gave everything a black wash. And to do that, basically I just got black acrylic paint, watered it down a little bit, and just painted everything black. And the brand of acrylic paint I usually use is Apple Barrel, just because it's 50 cents, and it's pretty good paint. So on the 2 doors, I created kind of a hinge. Well, I don't know if you'd really call it a hinge, but I'm calling it a hinge. So what I did, I drilled 2 holes with my Dremel on the outer edges of the top and the bottom of the doors, put glue in there, and then I placed this little piece of wire hanger in there. I just cut 4 little pieces like this, with wire cutters, just straight from a wire hanger. So what I'm also going to do is drill 2 holes on the bottom of the front marquee and then on the base, so that way the door should be able to swing open and close ace freely. So all the parts that I'm going to try to pass off is metal. I'm going to eventually paint them like a silvery gray, but first I'm going to put a white base coat. So I'm going to put a couple layers of that until it's on there pretty thick. And I like to add a lot of layers of paint, that way you get rid of some of the grain of the wood. And then a majority of the interior and then the outside red rectangles, I'm going to paint them all red. So I threw in a bunch of layers of red on there. And if you couldn't tell already, I was kind of using the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure phone booth as kind of a reference picture. So jumping a little ahead, I glued the 3 walls to the roof and the base. I added an interior shelf in the corner where the payphone's going to rest. I went over all the white areas with a couple coats of gray, and I'm just going to keep adding to that through the whole process. And I came up on a couple number and letter sticker sheets at the dollar store. So I just used those and I peeled them straight off the paper and just stuck them on there to spell out phone. And since they are from the dollar store, some of the letters aren't cut perfectly straight, so I'm going to have to keep peeling them up to make it at least look straight. So to make it look a little more worn and give it some more depth and texture, what I did is add some dry brushing, and I added a little bit of wash to it. So I used a Citadel paint to give it some of that scum look. And for the Citadel paint, this is the flavor I used. It's just delicious. Now on to the windows. Okay, so for the windows, I'm using action figure packaging plastic. So when your action figure comes in a clamshell or a blister pack, I always cut as much plastic as I can out of it before I recycle it. I keep that sheet of plastic and I use it for projects like this. So with the fine tip Sharpie, I'm tracing out the interior dimensions what the window should be about. And after that, I'm going to cut it out as close to the black lines as I can and then keep checking it. So I'm going to cut it out, I'm going to put it up to there, see if it needs to be a little bit smaller, and just keep trimming it little by little. Because I want it to be in there snug. I don't want it too small and I don't want it too big. So you just got to keep cutting little bits at a time and just checking it out before you glue it. And if there's any leftover Sharpie on the window before you glue it, all you have to do is just get a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a cotton pad or a cotton ball and just wipe it off and it comes right off. So for gluing in the windows, what I'm going to do is put a little bit of tacky glue on the inside border of the frame, and then one of the plastic pieces that I had cut from the window, I'm going to use that to smear it flat on there. And then what I'm going to do after that's done, I'm going to get some super glue and just put it in the corners. I found when you mix super glue with tacky glue, it dries twice as quick and it bonds a lot better. but be warned, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if that's making some type of chemical reaction and you're smelling it, it's killing your brain cells and messing you up. So just be warned, I don't even know. I mean, I could be doing some crazy damage to myself and not even knowing, but I mean, it's working for my project, so I guess it's worth it. I think I'm happy as long as I don't get that crap on my fingers. That sucks. And on the actual booth itself for the windows, I'm doing the same exact process. Tacky glue, smear it, super glue it, place it. And to glue all the balsa wood together, I use the same tacky glue super glue method. And I've been using the tacky glue super glue method on almost all my balsa wood projects, from my arcade cabinets to just about anything. I found that works the best. It dries the quickest and it seems to be holding up over time, so I'm good with that. And I did make sure to do all the windows before I start fully assembling it together. That way I don't have to work in the tight space trying to get it in there. And before fully installing the front marquee, I'm going to sneak those doors in there and hopefully my ghetto hinges work out as good as I think they will. So you can see I got the windows nice and secured in there. And I'm trying out a couple different things to make the glass look a little scummy. So to make it look a little foggy and a little weathered, I was smearing a little bit of glue on there, letting it dry, and then with the cotton pad with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, kind of wiping it clean. So that way in the middle it's kind of clean, a little bit of scratchy, and then on the outsides it's a little foggy. So I'm going to keep messing around with that, see what I come up with. So I admit I was getting a little nervous. I wasn't sure how fluid the doors would swing open or if they would rub on any of the sides or the top. But it's actually working out pretty legit. I'm stoked. So I didn't want to add any handles to the doors. So what I did is on one of the side glass panels, I made it broken and damaged. So when the doors are closed completely flush, I can just poke my finger in there and pop it open from the inside. So obviously use the same glue technique to get the window to stay in there. I used the box cutter to cut the jagged designs. And for the cracks on the glass, I used the box cutter as well. And then I actually added white paint and I kind of smeared it in the cracks and wiped it clean. That way it kind of popped a little bit more. And then I kind of brushed the edges too with some white paint, like a little bit of a dry brush on the edges, so it'll pop a little bit more as well. Alright, so the phone booth is pretty much done. So now I have to make the actual payphone part. So what I'm going to use is the pink insulation foam. I just have a little square right here that was in my scrap piece pile that I'm going to use. And to the left, I'm going to use an old school Barbie telephone. So the actual foam part's kind of long. So what I'm going to do is cut a little chunk out of the middle and then fuse it together, probably with super glue, and then cover it in epoxy so it'll be seamless. And then that little receiver part that the phone's resting on, I'm going to break that up and use that for the phone as well. Okay, so jumping a little ahead, I had somehow lost the footage that I had filmed from the blank piece of foam till now, but I guess it's alright. So using my Dremel, I cut a little piece of the phone out in the middle and fused it back together with some Milliput epoxy. And then I sanded the phone down real good because I'm going to paint it black and I want that Citadel paint to stick. So for the phone cord, what I used was like this chrome bendy wire string. My buddy came up on a roll of it at Hobby Lobby for 50 cents, a big old fatty roll of it. Come up! So he just cut me off some of that and it actually worked out perfect. So the little coin return button lever thingy and the little phone receiver where the phone's resting on, those are just pieces from the little Barbie phone that I broke up and just glued to the foam. So with the little block of foam, what I did is just sanded it to get that glossy layer off and to round out the edges. Then with the mechanical pencil, I drew out the design a couple times, painted it black and silver, and it's looking a little sloppy right now, but I'm going to keep touching it up. So you can kind of check out the bendy wire on the phone. It's actually perfect, and what I did is just poked a hole through the side and then the back side and kind of just fed it through and tied a knot to secure it in there. So I think I'm done with the payphone. I mean, it does look a little cartoony, but I think that's as good as I'm going to get it, and I'm satisfied with it for now. So I'm just going to leave it like that and glue it inside the phone booth, and hopefully it looks good. Yeah, I don't think it looks too bad. I think I'm happy with it. So what I did is just got a little bit of hot glue and just put it in the corner right there and just plop the phone in there, and that should be good for now. So once again, I made a really random ass prop, and it's kind of funny because I didn't really have a specific shot in mind or a necessity for this prop. It's kind of one of those things that I was watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure not too long ago, and then it came to me like, I think I can make one of those, and then I just got in a mood where I wanted to make something, so I was like, I think I'm going to make that phone booth. And the overall turnout, I'm pretty satisfied with it. I'm stoked to have a prop like this. As far as realism goes, I made the phone booth a little more spacious than it should have been. Every time I've ever been in a phone booth, it's really been crammed in there. And you can see when I had bullseye in there, it was a little spacious. The reason I did that is so it's a little easier on me when I'm posing the figures in there and everything. When I have my hands in there and I'm messing around, that way I don't risk popping out one of the windows or damaging anything. And it's a little easier and less frustrating for me to get the figure posed. But I'm sure there's some really spacious phone booths out there, or maybe not now, but at one point, because you really don't see too many phone booths now. And if you're a youngster and you have no idea what this whole episode was about, and you're sitting there wondering what the hell I'm making, sorry, you're missing out, dude. Thanks for watching this episode of Action Figure Prop Shop. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for future videos, definitely hit me up in the comments. I'll get back to you. And other than that, check out some of my other videos, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.